There will be a few videos coming up where I will explain the difference to the Kronos again. The next step will be about how we will work with our Kronos, that is my 73 model, on the getting the Nautilus ported and what to consider, as well as what works and what doesn't. There are various things floating around on the internet, and it seems you also need to buy something for it, and I will shed light on all of this as far as I can. The first major difference from the Kronos for me is the keyboard. On my 73 key Kronos, I have the hammer action from E to E. We now have a trigger keyboard here that, in my opinion, plays quite well. However, from C to C, this already means programming effort for me. To transfer everything from EE to CC, it will certainly be possible, but it requires a bit of work. The user interface has been seen before. I will go into detail about it again. While the device is booting up, it is definitely somewhat slow. In quotes, like the Kronos, so we still need to talk a bit more. He currently has the software version. I don't really know if it's up to date, so I'll take another look at it. The biggest difference on the user interface is that we no longer have any errors, and we also no longer have 8 knobs. And since the Nautilus has no karma, it also no longer has all the karma buttons and switch buttons. We have a total of 7 knobs, 6 of which are assignable as far as I can see. One dynamic knob is not assignable. What's really cool is that you can sync them by clicking on them. I actually think that's a nice feature. If you only need the knobs and not the spring, that's good. But let's go into detail again. It took just a little over 2.5 minutes to boot up. Let's take a look at what Dear Marius has to offer. You can see that there's already quite a bit going on. We're just going to take a superficial look at the whole thing now. Another point is that a lot of buttons have been removed from the top. This means that the menu navigation is a bit different. You always have to go back on the right side. We now essentially have 6 assignable quick assist buttons. We have a page button, a mode button, and we have to navigate through that. I will just press the mode button here, and then we enter the main menu. This is similar to what we know from the Kronos as the 6-button panel next to the rotary knob. There we also have set list, programs, combination in sequencer mode, sampling, global and media in some way. I would now simply go into global first, and we will see where the differences are. In the Kronos, we had more to see down here directly. I will now press page and we go directly into another menu. If I press page back, we come here. So now we see the basic menu. Here we can adjust several settings. This is similar to the Kronos. And when I press page now, I have a few other menus under the basic menu. I will just click in there as an example. And here we also see a submenu again. I don't want to go into detail about that. This is all very close to the Kronos. Here are the wave sequences. It's simple. The menu has a different color. On the Kronos, it is white. Arpeggio patterns are not available in the Kronos, as the Kronos does not have a simple arpeggiator. Instead, it has the extensive karma function. Now we see here, we have an AB field, so we have 2 of them. Arpeggiators, I would estimate, without having looked into it closely. It could also be that I'm talking nonsense. We will see all of that. We can definitely adjust quite a bit here. Then we have here options info showing what is included. We can see that the Nautilus is actually quite empty. Here we see 3 GB of RAM. To return to the main menu, we need to go to mode again. Or no, I actually didn't have to. I could have also gone through page and then basic setup here. Now we are going into the audio menu. It looks similar to the Kronos, except that we had the faders at the bottom on the Kronos. And now we simply have here, okay, this is just rec level. Now we just have the number displayed underneath. As I said, I haven't looked at the manual yet or anything, so let's just take a look at everything now. Then we have the audio inputs here, which you can access directly. This is actually very cool. I like it a bit better than the Kronos right off the bat, because you have more of a feel for it and can see what you're doing. Then we have the quick access mode here, where we can set what happens when we click on these 6 buttons. We can see here that the set list, program homepage, sequencer homepage, and so on. Similar to the Kronos, you just have to remember this. And we have a manual info. If I point my phone at the barcode, I hope to access the user manual. Now we go into KSC autoload. Here we see that something is already loading. So I have the preload Nautilus 1, whatever that is. This is also empty. And then the 2FS21, which could be from the Kronos. We will remove that right away. Let's look at the sample management. I can't scroll through this here with the dial. Can I do that here? This is actually getting on my nerves a bit because I have to operate everything completely through the screen and can't use the dial. We turn it around. If it can be done differently, we'd like to let you know. Here we have the network data. Now we go back to KSC autoload, throw that out, and only load the preload. Now let's let the preload run. What is really cool, which the Nautilus doesn't have, is that I have direct buttons here to octave and transpose on the user interface. I actually find that pretty cool because it goes very quickly. The MODX has that too, and it works very well with Kurzweil as well. That was something I missed with the Kronos. What I have already found out is that the pad mode, which we know from the Kronos, and which I personally love very much, I don't know how you feel about it, is also no longer available in the Nautilus. That's a shame, and I can't understand that. I will definitely check again shortly, or I will look into it again during the videos to see if that's really the case. But if that's really the case, then I find that a bit sad. It is still loading. For that, I naturally have plenty of space on the surface of the housing for controllers, laptop, iPad, or other devices. Now it has loaded. Now let's go back to mode in media and hope that it is something similar to disk mode and see that there are already a few things there. This is the KFC here. It works like the Kronos. We go in and then that's probably the whole sound from the Kronos. We'll just leave that as it is for now. Let's go back up and first load the factory sounds. Back here, since we have already loaded the KSC, PCG content all, we can just click on it now and it loads quite quickly. What I'm doing in parallel is checking if my Mac, specifically my Logic, has recognized the Nautilus directly. He actually does, so I will now connect the Nautilus to the Mac via USB. I just need to adjust a few settings here. Output device, my sound card or my interface, input device, apply the Nautilus. Create a blank project, a blank track, and if I did everything right, it should come up. Sound on. Should I add a bit of noise to the monitor? I don't know if you can hear that. I need to check which one. It must be a USB cable for sure. That could be the entire thing. This is the USB hub that I have connected in between. I will connect the Nautilus now, then it also whistles. Okay, it's not the hub. That means it could be anything else. We just have to live with that for now. Let's quickly check if this is volume dependent. Okay, that doesn't depend on the volume either. Let's just hope that it doesn't sound like that right away. Now we have loaded the preload. Now let's go back here under program and see the piano. Yes, I'm just going to play now and hope that I pick the right pedal. I actually find the keyboard quite pleasant to play, and we can see here that the screen looks a bit different than on the Kronos. That's not a problem for now. We have the performance meter here again, which we know from the Kronos. We can see that the effect CPU is already running a bit. Quick layer and quick split. Here we have the drum module, which seems to be different from the Kornhaus. What I can tell you now is that there are a total of 4 slots where we can save an appeal. And if I understood correctly, we can also switch sounds through these 4 slots, just like how the Montage Mox does it with its teeth and the Kornhaus does it with its chamber. We'll see how well that works later. Now we see the sampling menu, which we also know. I believe it has a slightly different name, tone adjust. We can probably do something with the knobs, or we might not be able to. Exactly. Now let's go into combination mode. We see here directly that it looks completely different from the Kronos. The Kronos had all 16 timbres directly on one level. This naturally makes everything very small. Here we have 8, just like with the Montage MODX, and we can switch up here. It's actually quite cool with these large volume controls. So you can really... I find it convenient to operate. Here we have the status of the individual timbres, and we can change the mini channel, which is different from the Kornhaus. However, it reacts quite slowly when turning the knob. It doesn't respond as quickly as one is used to with the Kronos. We can choose here whether to play an internal or an external sound. It's like with the Kronos. Okay, now I have turned it all the way down. We can mute and we can also switch to solo. Here we have the performance meter again. And when we go in here, we can switch back here again. We will go into detail on this later. For now, this is just a rough overview. What is a bit unusual now is that I have to press the page button here, and then I see the settings that I can go through. I will now go into the timbre parameters. This is known from the Kronos timbre parameter. And here we see the channel internally once more. I can set my bank select here when I am in external mode. I have the oscillator here, which I can adjust individually for the timbres. By the way, all 16 pitches are lined up next to each other, just like we know from the Kronos. There is a coarse transpose at the top, and then the fine-tuning below it. We can set the band range per timbre, the delay, wave sequencer, arpeggio, and the input. Everything is similar to the Kronos. But as I said, we will go into detail on that later. Then we have the MIDI filters. Aside from the colors, it actually looks exactly the same as the Kronos. The colors do make a difference now. I really like the image below. The above seems a bit off to me now, somewhat unclear at first glance, but I think that's just something I'm used to. The IFX, we know that. Everything from Kronos. Not much has changed there either. I think the content is quite similar. And then here again, MFX and TFX. Not much has changed there either. I will enter the sequencer mode. This feels very unfamiliar to me now, because I have the mixer directly here. And just the mixer, but that's all correct. If we now go to page, we can see the track parameters here that we can adjust. Track edit, we know the image from the Kronos. Also, up here on the top right, we have the menu with all the options in it. The button on the top right is the same as before. So now let's go back into the set list. We see here again, we know all this colors we have. This is actually the menu. It doesn't exist like this on the Kronos, as I can switch to the mixer here. Then we have the ARPs, so arpeggio drum, and we have tone adjust here. Exactly, and I can probably go through the programs for the... Yes, okay, I will go through the programs. Okay, we also have tone adjust. Then we have the equalizer here, which we also know from the Kornhaus. With the Kornhaus, I have a button down here for editing. The slots can be changed here. Then I enter the edit menu here, compare, page mode, edit program. Then it goes into, we don't want that. Yes, when I click on page, I enter the edit menu here. And we also know this from the Kronos. I can do copy, cut, paste, and insert down here. I can see up here whether I have selected a program or a combination. You can select this here. If I click in here and operate the dial, I can switch between combination. I can click on this, change it, and then select the name. We know volume, hold time, and we also know transpose. That's actually very cool. Unfortunately, the Yamaha MODX doesn't have that. That's a rough start for now.